This is a multimeter. A multimeter is one of the most useful tools in electronics because it allows us to measure and troubleshoot electronic circuits. The name multimeter comes from the fact that it combines multiple measurements into a single device. Depending on the model, a multimeter can measure things like voltage, current, resistance, continuity, and more. Before we start taking measurements, let's look at the different parts of the multimeter. On the top is the display, which shows us measurements. In the center is the selection dial, which allows us to choose what we want to measure. At the bottom are the 3 port connections. Depending on what you're trying to measure, you may need to use different ports. The probes are simply the wires that allow us to connect the multimeter to a circuit. Let's start with one of the most useful functions, continuity mode, as we saw earlier in the breadboards video. Continuity mode allows us to test whether 2 points are electrically connected. When the multimeter detects a complete electrical path between the 2 probes, it will beep. Continuity mode is extremely useful for checking breadboard connections, verifying wires, and troubleshooting circuits that are not working. Next, let's look at resistance. Resistance is measured in ohms, represented by the Greek letter omega, and describes how much a component resists the flow of electricity. Let's measure this resistor. To measure resistance, the resistor should not be connected to a powered circuit. We simply place 1 probe on each side of the resistor and read the value shown on the display. It's important for things like resistance, voltage, and current to select the range you're measuring to protect the multimeter and ensure you get accurate results. Always start at the highest reading and gradually go down until you see the appropriate value. Next, let's look at voltage. To measure voltage, we place the probes across 2 points where we want to compare. Let's measure this battery. The black probe is connected to the negative terminal and the red probe is connected to the positive terminal. The display shows the battery voltage, 1.52 volts. Unlike continuity and resistance, voltage measurements are typically performed while a circuit is powered. Voltage measurements are one of the most useful ways to troubleshoot a circuit because they allow us to see whether power is reaching different parts of the circuit. Finally, let's talk about current, which is measured in amps. Current measurements are different from voltage measurements because the multimeter must become part of the circuit itself. Instead of measuring across a component, the circuit must be opened and the current must flow through the multimeter or in series with the multimeter. Because of this, current measurements are often a little more difficult and should be performed carefully. It's also important to verify that the probes are connected to the proper ports as to protect the multimeter. For example, for this setup, we would remove the wire to let electricity flow through the multimeter, unlike for voltage, where we would probe in parallel and not have to remove the wire. For now, just remember that voltage is measured across a component, while current is measured through a circuit. Multimeters are one of the most powerful tools in electronics. Whether you're checking breadboard connections, measuring resistor values, testing batteries, or troubleshooting a circuit, a multimeter helps you understand what's happening in the circuit. As you continue through these lessons, you'll use your multimeter frequently, so becoming comfortable with it now will make learning electronics much easier. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.